My daughter asked me for money, but I taught her the golden rule of wealth multiplication. The phone rang at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in June. I was already in bed, reading glasses perched on my nose, working through a financial planning book I'd picked up at the library. The sudden sound made my heart jump, not just from surprise, but from instinct. Good news doesn't call at midnight. Emma's name lit up the screen. I answered before the second ring. Emma, what's wrong? Mom. Her voice was breaking, soaked with tears. Mom, I need your help. The book slid off my lap. I sat up straighter, gripping the phone. Are you hurt? Is it Brandon? No, I'm okay, physically, but Mom, I need money. She took a shaky breath. I need $85,000. It's an emergency. I can't explain everything right now, but I need it by Friday. Please, please don't ask a lot of questions. Just ... Can you help me? $85,000. By Friday. Don't ask questions. I stood up, walked to the window, pressed my forehead against the cool glass. Outside, the street was quiet, modest suburban homes. Toyota and Honda sedans in driveways, porch lights glowing yellow against the darkness. My world, the one I'd chosen deliberately. Emma, I said carefully, keeping my voice steady, even though my mind was racing. I need you to tell me what's going on. I can't, not right now. Brandon said. She stopped herself, and I could hear her trying to control her breathing. Please, Mom, do you have it? Can you help me? Brandon said. Those two words landed like stones in water, ripples spreading. My son-in-law, the man my daughter had married 5 years ago in a small ceremony at Oak Park Conservatory. The man who'd stood at the altar in a rented tuxedo and promised to love and protect her. The man I'd never quite trusted, though I'd kept that opinion carefully locked away because Emma loved him and I'd promised myself I wouldn't be the kind of mother-in-law who interfered. Emma, honey, I'm not giving you $85,000 without knowing what it's for. That's not me being difficult. That's me being your mother. It's an investment. Her words came faster now, rehearsed. It went bad. We lost everything in our savings account. Brandon says if we can get $85,000 by Friday, we can recover it all. But if we don't, ... double quotes, a sob broke through. Mom, please, I'm begging you. An investment that went bad. Lost everything. Brandon says. I closed my eyes. 20 years of working as a bookkeeper had taught me to read financial trouble the way a doctor reads symptoms, and everything Emma was describing pointed to one diagnosis: fraud. Emma, I want you to come to my house tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., just you, not Brandon. We're going to talk about this face to face. But Mom, there's no time. 9 a.m. Emma, I'll help you. I promise I will help you. But we're doing this my way, on my timeline. Understood. Silence. Then, quietly. Okay, 9 a.m. I love you. Honey, I love you too, Mom. I hung up and stood there in the dark for a long time, listening to my heart pound, feeling that old familiar knot of dread in my stomach. The same knot I'd felt 8 years ago when the police officer knocked on my door to tell me my husband John's plane had gone down over Lake Michigan. My daughter was in trouble, and I had a sinking feeling it was worse than she knew. Let me tell you something about myself that Emma didn't discover until much later. I'm rich. Not yacht and mansion rich. Not private jet rich. But comfortable in a way that most people would never guess by looking at my life. I have $3 million in investment assets, not counting the 3-bedroom ranch house I live in, which has been paid off for 6 years. 6 rental properties scattered across Chicago's western suburbs, quietly appreciating in value while generating income every single month. A 401k with $340,000 that I haven't touched since I semi-retired. A savings account with $180,000 earning interest. Not much interest these days, but something. But if you saw me at the grocery store, you'd think I was just another widow scraping by. I drive a 2015 Toyota Camry with 147,000 miles on it. The check engine light has been on for 4 months. I buy my clothes at Target, my groceries on sale, and I've been using the same coffee maker for 12 years because it still works fine. I live in a modest ranch house in a middle-class neighborhood where nobody asks questions and everybody waves hello when you're pulling weeds. My daughter thinks I'm living on her father's modest pension and Social Security. She has no idea. My neighbors think I work part-time at a local accounting firm because I need the money. They're half right. I do work there, but not because I need to. It's called stealth wealth. Living below your means, hiding in plain sight. And my husband John taught me everything about it before he died. John was a commercial airline pilot for United. Good salary, not extraordinary, but solid. We lived comfortably. Raised Emma in a nice neighborhood. Took modest vacations to national parks. Paid for her college at UIC without loans. We looked like an ordinary middle-class family. What people didn't know was that John was brilliant with money in a way that had nothing to do with making a lot of it, and everything to do with keeping it, growing it, protecting it. He'd grown up poor. His father had been a successful small business owner in Rockford until a business partner embezzled everything when John was 12. The family went from comfortable suburban life to food stamps in under 6 months. John watched his father's pride crumble, watched his mother work 2 jobs, watched their house get foreclosed on. John never forgot what it felt like to lose everything because someone you trusted stole it. So he learned, read every book on personal finance he could find, took courses, talked to successful investors. And he taught me everything he learned, sitting at our old oak kitchen table every Sunday morning with coffee and spreadsheets. "Linda," he'd say, tapping his pen against the numbers. "The people who look rich usually aren't. The people who are rich usually don't look it. Remember that. Always." He taught me about the difference between assets and liabilities, about passive income, about the power of real estate, about living on less than you make and investing the difference. "A new car is a liability," he'd explain patiently. "It loses value the second you drive it off the lot. Costs you money every month in payments, insurance, gas. A rental property is an asset. It gains value over time and pays you every single month. Always ask yourself, will this thing I'm buying make me richer or poorer in 5 years?" We bought our first rental property when Emma was 5, a small duplex in Berwyn. Then another in Oak Park. Then another in Forest Park. By the time John died 8 years ago in that terrible crash, mechanical failure, 43 people dead. National news for 2 weeks. We owned 4 rental properties and had built a modest investment portfolio. The life insurance was $400,000. I was 50 years old, a widow, and terrified. Everyone told me to play it safe. Put the money in savings. Don't make big decisions while grieving. Wait a year. But I remembered what John had always said. Safe is sometimes the riskiest choice of all. Inflation eats safe money. Smart money works for you. So 6 months after the funeral, when I could finally think straight, I took that $400,000, combined it with our savings, and I did something that scared me half to death. I bought 2 more rental properties. My sister thought I'd lost my mind. "Linda, you're in mourning. Don't make major financial decisions right now." But I could hear John's voice in my head. The best time to buy real estate is when you're scared but the numbers make sense. Fear keeps prices down. Logic builds wealth. So I bought a duplex in Oak Park for $220,000 and a single-family home in Berwyn for $180,000, fixed them up myself, learned how to patch drywall from YouTube, how to install new fixtures, how to paint without leaving streaks, rented them out within 3 months. Today, 8 years later, those 6 properties bring in $9,200 a month in rental income after mortgages, taxes, insurance, and maintenance. That's $110,400 a year. My personal expenses, mortgage-free house, modest lifestyle, run about $42,000 a year. I make $68,400 a year in profit without working a single hour at a job I don't want. The properties have appreciated in value by an average of 40% since I bought them. My $400,000 investment turned into $2.3 million in assets in 8 years. Not by working harder, not by winning the lottery, but by making my money work for me instead of sitting in a bank account earning nothing. I still work part-time at Morton and Associates, a small accounting firm in Oak Park. 20 hours a week, keeps me busy, keeps me sharp, and it keeps up appearances. Because here's what John taught me that I've never forgotten. The moment people know you have money, they treat you differently. They ask for it. They expect it. They feel entitled to it. I didn't want that for Emma. I wanted her to build her own life, make her own mistakes, stand on her own 2 feet, learn the value of work. But now my daughter was calling me at midnight, crying, asking for $85,000, saying her husband told her not to ask questions. And every instinct I had was screaming that something was very, very wrong. Emma arrived at 9:23 a.m. the next morning. I watched her through the kitchen window as she pulled up in her Honda Accord, the reliable sedan she'd bought used 6 years ago and maintained carefully because she couldn't afford a new one on a teacher's salary. She sat in the car for a full minute before getting out, gripping the steering wheel, preparing herself. When she finally walked up the path to my front door, I could see she'd been crying for hours. Her eyes were swollen, red-rimmed. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore jeans and a Northwestern sweatshirt, her alma mater. The degree she'd worked so hard for, teaching second graders to read for $54,000 a year. I met her at the door, pulled her into a hug before she could say anything. She collapsed against me, and I felt her whole body shaking. "Come on, honey, let's sit down." I made coffee. Strong coffee. The kind John used to make on Sunday mornings when we'd review our finances, dark roast, no sugar. The ritual that meant we're tackling something important. We sat at the same oak kitchen table where John had taught me everything I knew about money. The surface was scarred from decades of use, knife marks from cutting coupons, ring stains from coffee mugs, a burn mark from when Emma was 10 and set down a hot pan without thinking. This table had history, had witnessed every major financial decision of my adult life. Now it would witness whatever crisis had brought my daughter here at 9 in the morning, exhausted and terrified. "Okay," I said gently, wrapping my hands around my mug, mirroring her posture to make her feel safe. "Tell me everything. From the beginning, take your time." Emma stared into her coffee like she was trying to read tea leaves, trying to find the right words. "Brandon said he found an investment opportunity 3 months ago." Her voice was flat, rehearsed, like she'd practiced this speech in the car. "A friend from work told him about it. Something about cryptocurrency mining. I didn't really understand it, but Brandon explained that it was safe, guaranteed returns, low risk." My stomach tightened. Cryptocurrency, guaranteed returns. Those 2 words should never appear in the same sentence. He said we should invest our savings, all of it. $78,000. He said in 6 months, we'd double it, maybe triple it. That we could finally afford a down payment on a real house, not just renting. I kept my voice neutral, but my mind caught on that word. "Emma, I thought you and Brandon owned your house." "We do. I mean, we did. I thought we did." She looked up at me, confusion mixing with the exhaustion. "I don't know, Mom. Brandon handles all the finances. He says it's easier that way since he's better with numbers." Red flag number 3. Right after cryptocurrency and guaranteed returns. What happened to the investment? Last week, he told me it crashed. The company went under. We lost everything. Every penny. She set down her coffee mug with shaking hands. Our emergency fund. The money we'd been saving for 10 years. All $78,000. Just gone. And the $85,000. Brandon says his friend found another opportunity. A way to recover what we lost. But we need $85,000 by Friday to get in on it. He says if we don't act fast, we'll lose this chance and the $78,000 is gone forever. And Mom, her voice broke completely. "I don't know what to do. I'm so scared. What if we lose everything? What if we lose the house?" There it was. The hook. The second scam. The classic pattern. Lose big, then promise recovery if you just invest more. It's how Ponzi schemes work. How gambling addictions escalate. How desperate people get sucked deeper into disaster. But I didn't say that. Not yet. Because Emma wasn't ready to hear it. Emma, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me, okay? She nodded. Do you have access to your bank accounts? Can you see where the money went? She hesitated. Brandon handles our finances. The accounts are joint, but he manages them. He sends me a summary every month. Says it's easier if one person keeps track of everything. Have you ever logged in yourself? Looked at the actual statements? No? Should I? I reached across the table and took her hand. Her fingers were ice cold, despite the warm coffee. Honey, I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to hear me. Really hear me. Can you do that? She nodded again, tears starting to spill down her cheeks. I don't think your money went to a cryptocurrency investment. And I don't think Brandon's friend has a way to recover it. I think something else is going on. Something Brandon isn't telling you. And I think before we talk about $85,000, we need to find out what happened to your $78,000. What are you saying? I'm saying that I think we need to look at your bank statements. Today, right now, without Brandon knowing. Emma pulled her hand back. Mom, are you saying you think Brandon, what, stole from me, lied to me, he's my husband? I'm saying I think he's not telling you the whole truth. And until we know what the truth is, I'm not giving anyone $85,000. She stood up, anger flashing through the fear. I knew you'd be like this. I knew you never liked Brandon. Emma, no. You think just because Dad was perfect with money, everyone else is either an idiot or a criminal. Brandon made a mistake. One bad investment. That's all. And now you're refusing to help us because you never trusted him in the first place. I stayed seated, kept my voice calm. I'd expected this. When someone you love is in trouble, especially trouble you don't want to see, denial is the first defense. Emma Claire Morrison, I used her full name, the voice I'd used when she was 16, and tried to sneak out to a party. Sit down. She sat, not because she wanted to, but because that voice still worked. I took a slow breath. I'm going to help you, I said quietly. I promise you, I am going to help you. But not by handing you $85,000 to give to Brandon without knowing where it's going or why you need it. Then how? I'm going to teach you what your father taught me. I'm going to teach you how to protect yourself. How to see through the lies people tell about money. How to build real wealth instead of chasing promises. And I'm going to help you find out what's really going on with your finances. Mom, I don't have time for lessons. I need money. By Friday. No, honey, you don't need money. You need the truth. And once you have the truth, we'll figure out what to do about it. Together. Emma stared at me for a long moment, her face going through a dozen emotions. Anger, fear, confusion, desperation. Then something shifted. A crack in the armor. I'm so scared, Mom, she whispered. What if we really do lose everything? You're not going to lose everything. I won't let that happen. I stood up, walked around the table, and crouched down next to her chair so we were eye level. But Emma, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Can you trust that I know what I'm doing? She looked at Marilee, looked at me maybe for the first time in years, seeing me not as Mom but as a person who'd survived worse than this. Who'd taken $400,000 and turned it into $2.3 million, who'd kept herself afloat after her husband died, when everyone expected her to fall apart. Slowly, she nodded. Okay, what do I do? First thing, pull out your phone, right now, and log into your bank account. Look at every transaction from the last 6 months. Every single one. What am I looking for? Anything that doesn't make sense. Transfers you don't recognize. Charges you didn't approve. Patterns that seem wrong. Emma pulled out her phone with trembling hands, opened her banking app, stared at the screen, and as she started scrolling, I watched the color drain from her face. Mom, she whispered. What? What is Apex Digital Solutions? I looked at the screen, saw the transaction, $2,400, transferred out on March 15th. I don't know, honey, keep scrolling. She did, and with every swipe, with every mysterious company name, With every unexplained transfer, I watched my daughter's world start to crumble. Because sometimes, the most loving thing a mother can do isn't rescue her child from the truth, it's help her see it clearly. Emma's phone trembled in her hands. We'd been sitting at the kitchen table for 40 minutes, scrolling through 3 months of bank statements, and the list of unexplained transactions kept growing. Apex Digital Solutions, $2,400. Summit Investment Group, $3,100. Pinnacle Capital, $4,800. Horizon Trading LLC, $6,200. The amounts were getting bigger, more frequent, and when I tried searching each company name on my laptop, nothing came up. No websites, no LinkedIn profiles, no business registrations. Ghost companies. Taking real money. Mom, I don't understand. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. I never authorized any of these. I don't even know what these companies are. Keep scrolling, I said quietly, even though my own hands were clenched tight in my lap. She did. The morning sun was streaming through the kitchen window now, casting harsh light on the phone screen, making the numbers impossible to ignore. More transfers. Different names. Atlantic Capital. Pacific Ventures. Genesis Holdings. All pulling money. Thousands at a time. Spanning March, April, May. By the time we reached June, Emma was crying silently, tears just running down her face unchecked. The final entry was dated June 4th, 5 days ago. Emergency withdrawal, $22,000. Cleared out what was left of their savings account. $78,000 total, gone. Over the course of 3 months, and every single transaction had been initiated from Brandon's phone. His login credentials, his authorization. Emma hadn't been asked, hadn't been consulted, hadn't signed a single approval. I didn't know, she said, her voice breaking. Mom, I swear I didn't know. He sends me a monthly summary. Says everything is fine. Shows me the balance. But he must have been, I don't know what he was doing. I moved my chair closer to hers, put my arm around her shoulders. I know you didn't know, honey. That's why we're looking now. What do? I thought carefully, before answering. Because what I was about to suggest would change everything between Emma and Brandon. Once you start investigating your spouse, there's no going back to innocent trust. But innocent trust had already been shattered. Emma just hadn't known it yet. I have a friend, I said. Bob Chen. He's a certified public accountant. One of the best forensic accountants in Chicago. He specializes in finding things people try to hide. You want to investigate, Brandon? It wasn't a question. I want to find out where your money went. Don't you? She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, smearing mascara across her cheek. She looked young suddenly, vulnerable, like the little girl who used to crawl into my lap after a nightmare. Yes, she said finally. Yes, I want to know. Okay, but Emma, I need you to do something for me. Something important. What? Don't tell Brandon we're doing this. Not yet. Can you do that? Mom, I can't lie to my husband. You're not lying. You're protecting yourself until you know the full truth. There's a difference. I squeezed her shoulder gently. If Brandon is in trouble, real trouble, and we confront him before we know what we're dealing with, he might panic, might do something that makes things worse. We need to know what's happening first. Then we can decide how to handle it. Emma was quiet for a long moment, staring at the phone in her hands. Okay, she whispered. What do I tell him? Tell him you asked me for the money, and I said I need some time to liquidate investments. That's not a lie. Would need time if I were actually giving you $85,000. Tell him I'll have an answer by next week. That buys us time. Time for what? Time to find out the truth. After Emma left driving home with red eyes and a story about needing a few days for Mom to move money around, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time staring at my phone. Then I called Bob Chen. Bob and I had worked together at Morton & Associates for 15 years before he semi-retired 3 years ago. He was 62 now, sharp as ever. And he took on special cases, usually divorces, where one spouse was hiding assets, sometimes fraud investigations for small businesses. He answered on the third ring. Linda Morrison. It's been too long. How are you? I need a favor, Bob. A big one. And I need it done quietly. His tone shifted immediately. Professional. Focused. I'm listening. I told him everything. The midnight phone call, the bank statements, the mysterious company names, Brandon's control over the finances, Emma's desperation. When I finished, Bob was quiet for a moment. You think he's gambling, he said. Not a question, a diagnosis. I think something's going on. Can you find out what? I'll need his full name, social security number if you have it, date of birth, any documentation Emma can provide without tipping him off. I have all of it. Emma files taxes jointly. I did their returns for the last 3 years before they switched to TurboTax. Send everything to my encrypted email. Give me 2 weeks. I'll find out where that money went. 2 weeks. My heart sank. Bob, she needs answers, Linda. His voice was gentle but firm. If I rush this, I'll miss things. And if Brandon's doing what I think he's doing, you need the complete picture, not just the surface. 2 weeks gets you documentation that will hold up in court if it comes to that. 48 hours gets you suspicions and guesses. Which do you want? I closed my eyes. He was right, as always. 2 weeks. But Bob, I can't pay your normal rate right now. Not without Linda. John was my friend. You're my friend. Emma's practically family. You're not paying me. This one's on the house. My throat tightened. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. If my instincts are right, what I find isn't going to be easy to hear. For the next week, Emma came to my house every day after school. Brandon thought she was helping me with home repairs, painting the guest bedroom, organizing the garage. Simple, believable lies that bought us time. But Emma wasn't painting. She was learning. We sat at the kitchen table every afternoon, and I taught her what John had taught me 20 years ago. The basics. The foundation she'd never gotten because I'd been too focused on making sure she earned her own way. This is what your dad and I did, I explained, pulling out the old 3-ring binder where John had kept all our financial records. The pages were yellowed, some corners dog-eared, but the information was timeless. We had 3 bank accounts. I had mine. He had his. And we had 1 joint account for shared expenses. You kept money separate. Emma looked surprised. Some of it, yes. Not because we didn't trust each other. Because we wanted financial independence. Your dad always said, the best way to protect a marriage is to make sure neither person feels trapped by money. I showed her the old statements. The neat accounting John had maintained. Each month, we'd sit down together and review everything. Both of us knew exactly where every dollar was going. That's transparency. That's partnership. Emma traced her finger over one of John's handwritten notes in the margin. Linda's personal account, her money, her choice, no questions asked. Dad wrote that. He believed that even in marriage, you should have autonomy. If I wanted to buy something without explaining it, I could. If he wanted to, he could. But our bills were always paid first. Our savings were always growing, and we both knew the full financial picture. Brandon never wanted that, Emma said quietly. He said it was easier if one person handled everything. That too many cooks in the kitchen would cause problems. That's not partnership, honey. That's control. And control, even benevolent control, is dangerous. Because when the person in control makes mistakes or lies, the other person has no way to protect themselves. Emma was quiet, absorbing this. I trusted him, she finally said. I thought trust meant not questioning anything. No. Trust means both people being trustworthy. Being open. Being accountable. What you had wasn't trust. It was blind faith. And blind faith in the wrong person will destroy you. On day 9, my phone buzzed while Emma and I were reviewing her credit report. Text from Bob Chen. Can you talk? Call me when you're alone. My stomach dropped. I excused myself, told Emma I needed to return a call from the accounting firm, stepped out onto the back porch, called Bob. Tell me, I said. Linda, this is worse than I thought. I gripped the porch railing. How bad? Brandon Carter has $340,000 in gambling debts. The world tilted slightly. I sat down hard on the porch steps. What? Online sports betting. Started small about 2 years ago, $50 here, $100 there. Escalated dramatically about 18 months ago. He's in deep with 3 different offshore betting sites. Illegal operators. The kind that don't forgive debts. Jesus Christ. That's not all. Bob's voice was grim. He opened for credit cards in Emma's name without her knowledge, used her social security number, forged her signature on the applications. Total credit card debt in her name, $47,000. She doesn't know about them because the statements go to a P.O. box he rented. I felt sick. Can he do that? Legally, no. It's identity theft, fraud. But unless Emma reports it as fraud and files a police report, she's on the hook for those debts. What about the house? That's where it gets complicated. Bob paused. The house at 847 Maple Street in Oak Park. Do you remember buying that property? Of course I remember. I bought it in 2020 as a wedding gift for Emma and Brandon. Paid $285,000 cash. Put it in my name because ... double quotes. I stopped because I didn't trust Brandon even then. I told Emma I was helping with the down payment, but I kept the title in my name. They've been living there rent-free for 5 years thinking they were paying mortgage to a bank, but they were actually paying rent to me into an escrow account I set up. Smart. Because 6 months ago, Brandon tried to refinance it. My blood ran cold. Tried. He brought Emma to a mortgage company. Told her they were refinancing to get a better rate. Had her sign a stack of papers. She signed everything without reading because she trusted him. But the house isn't in their names. How could they refinance? They couldn't. Not legally. But the mortgage company didn't do proper title research. Small outfit, sloppy paperwork. They approved an $85,000 cash-out refinance based on Brandon's fraudulent claim that he owned the property. By the time the title company caught the error, the money had already been dispersed. Where's the money now? Gone, paid to the offshore betting sites. But here's the thing, Linda the mortgage company is now trying to put a lien on the property to recover their $85,000. When they discovered the title was in your name, not Brandon's, they realized they'd been defrauded. They're preparing to sue both Brandon and Emma for fraud. But Emma didn't know, doesn't matter. She signed the documents. In the eyes of the law, she participated. Unless she can prove she was deceived, she's liable. I put my head in my hands. So let me make sure I understand. Brandon has $340,000 in gambling debts. He stole $78,000 from their joint savings account. He opened $47,000 in fraudulent credit cards in Emma's name. He attempted to steal $85,000 from my property through fraud. And now Emma might be sued for fraud she didn't know she was committing. That's the situation. And Linda, Bob's voice dropped lower. Those offshore betting sites don't mess around. They've been sending collection notices to Brandon's work email for months, increasingly threatening. The most recent one mentioned alternative collection methods and included Emma's photos and her school address. Terror shot through me. They know where she works. They know everything. That's how these operations work. They threaten family members, places of employment. They make it personal. Is she in danger? Possibly. These sites operate outside U.S. law. If Brandon can't pay, they'll go after whatever pressure points they can find. Emma is his biggest pressure point. I stood up, pacing the small porch, trying to think through the panic. What do we do? Document everything. I'll send you my full report tonight, 43 pages. Every bet, every transaction, every fraudulent account. Then Emma needs to take action. Separate her finances legally. File police reports for identity theft. Get a lawyer. And most importantly, get away from Brandon before this gets worse. That evening, after Emma had gone home with another excuse about progress on the garage, I sat alone at the kitchen table reading Bob's report on my laptop. 43 pages of financial destruction, every bet Brandon had placed, every dollar lost, every lie told, every line crossed, The pattern was clear. An addiction spiraling out of control, a man drowning in debt, grasping at anything to stay afloat, even if it meant pulling his wife under with him. I was halfway through page 23, a detailed breakdown of the fraudulent credit cards, when Emma's phone rang. I could hear it through the window. She was sitting in her car in my driveway, probably gathering courage to drive home and face Brandon. She answered, her voice faint through the glass. Hello. Then, who is this? A pause. Longer. I don't understand what you're saying. Another pause. I could see her face through the windshield, illuminated by the car's interior light. She'd gone completely white. Please don't. I'm a teacher. I work with children. Please. She hung up, sat frozen for a moment, then burst out of the car and ran back to my house. I met her at the door. Emma, what happened? Someone just called me. She was shaking violently. A man, with an accent. He said Brandon owes them money. A lot of money. He said if Brandon doesn't pay by Friday, they're going to visit me at work. He knew my school's name, Mom. He knew which classroom. He said they'd be very disappointed if Brandon didn't honor his obligations. I pulled her inside, locked the door. Did he threaten you directly? He didn't have to. The way he said it, ... double quotes, she started crying. Mom, what is happening? Why are people calling me about Brandon's debts? What has he done? I looked at my daughter, my terrified, betrayed daughter, and I made a decision. No more protecting her from the truth. No more letting her live in ignorance, while Brandon's lies closed in around her. Sit down, I said. I have something to show you. I opened my laptop, pulled up Bob's report. This is what Brandon has done. And I told her everything. Emma didn't cry. That's what surprised me most. I'd just shown her 43 pages of evidence that her husband had stolen from her, lied to her, buried her in debt, and put her physical safety at risk, and she didn't cry. She sat at my kitchen table, laptop open in front of her, scrolling through Bob's report with a face like stone, reading every transaction, every bet, every fraudulent credit card application with her forged signature. When she finally looked up at me, her eyes were dry, clear, cold. How do I fix this? Not how could he? Not I can't believe it. Not what do I do? Just, how do I fix this? That's when I knew my daughter was going to be okay. Because the first step to solving any problem is accepting that it exists, and taking ownership of the solution. We fix it together, I said. But Emma, it's going to take work. Real work. I'm going to teach you what your father taught me. The essentials. Not everything, we don't have time for everything. But enough to protect yourself and understand what you're up against. How long do we have? I thought about the threatening phone call. About Brandon expecting an answer about the $85,000 by Friday. About the offshore betting sites that knew where Emma worked. Days, not weeks. We need to move fast. But first I closed the laptop. First, I need you to understand something fundamental. Something your dad spent 20 years teaching me. What's that? The difference between working for money and making money work for you. I pulled out a single sheet of paper, not a 10-page tutorial. Just one page with 2 columns of numbers. Simple, visual, impossible to misunderstand. Left column, I said. Your current situation. You work 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, teaching 2nd grade. You make $54,000 a year. That's $27 per hour. If you get sick and can't work, the money stops. If you take a vacation, the money stops. Your time equals your income. Emma nodded slowly. Following right column. Me. I own 6 rental properties. They bring in $9,200 per month in rental income, after all expenses. That's $110,400 per year. I work 0 hours at those properties. I have a management company handle everything. The money comes in whether I'm awake or asleep, healthy or sick, on vacation or at home. That's passive income. But you had to buy those properties first. With Dad's life insurance. Exactly. I took $400,000 and turned it into $2.3 million in 8 years by buying assets that pay me. Your dad used to say, rich people buy assets, poor people buy liabilities and think they're assets. I drew a simple diagram. A car is a liability. It costs you money every month and loses value. A rental property is an asset. It pays you money every month and gains value. The key to building wealth isn't making more money. It's converting your money into assets that generate passive income. But I don't have $400,000 to invest. You don't need it. You start smaller. Your dad and I bought our first duplex for $89,000 with an FHA loan. Put down $4,450, 5%. That property now brings in $1,400 a month in profit and is worth $220,000. We turned $4,450 into an asset worth $500,000 over 15 years. I could see the wheels turning in Emma's mind. So instead of asking you for $85,000 to give to Brandon, I should be thinking about how to invest money to create income I don't have to work for. Exactly. But right now, you can't invest anything. Because Brandon destroyed your financial foundation. So first, we rebuild that foundation. Protect what's left. Then we build wealth. I pulled out a folder one I'd prepared years ago but never shown Emma because I'd hoped she'd never need it. When your dad and I bought our first rental property, we made a mistake. We put it in our personal names. That meant if someone slipped on ice on that property's sidewalk and sued us, they could come after our personal assets, our house, our savings, everything. What did you do? We learned about LLCs, limited liability companies. It's a legal structure that creates a wall between your business assets and your personal assets. We created Morrison Property Holdings, LLC, and transferred all our rental properties into it. Now, if someone sues the LLC, they can only get the assets inside the LLC. They can't touch my personal savings, my 401k, my house. It's a firewall. I showed her the simple one-page diagram I'd drawn years ago. This applies to your situation right now. Brandon has $340,000 in debts and $47,000 in fraudulent credit cards. Illinois is a marital property state, which means his debts can legally become your debts unless you protect yourself. You need to separate yourself from his financial disaster. Legally, on paper. Right now, how legal separation of property. It's a court document that says from this point forward, his debts are his and your assets are yours. It protects you from any new damage he causes. And it starts creating a legal paper trail that shows you discovered the fraud and took action. That matters in divorce court. Divorce. Emma said the word like she was testing its weight. Maybe, maybe not. But even if you decide to try to save the marriage later, you protect yourself first. Love doesn't pay off. $340,000 in gambling debts. I placed Bob's 43-page report in front of Emma. Due diligence means doing your homework, investigating before you trust, verifying before you commit. Your dad investigated every single property we ever bought. Checked comps, reviewed inspection reports, calculated cash flow projections. He never assumed anything. I trusted Brandon to do that with our finances, and that's the mistake. Trust, but verify. Reagan said that about the Soviets. Your dad said it about everything involving money. Even in marriage, especially in marriage, you verify. You look at statements. You ask questions. You stay involved. I tapped the report. This is what due diligence looks like after the fact. Bob spent 2 weeks tracing every transaction, every bet, every lie. This documentation is what protects you legally. Without this, it's your word against Brandon's. With this, it's facts. I should have done this myself, months ago, maybe, but you can't change the past. You can only control what happens next. And what happens next is you use this information to protect yourself. Brandon Carter sat in his car outside the Oak Park Public Library at 10:47 p.m., hands shaking, staring at his phone. The text message was clear. Final notice, $340K, due Friday. No extensions. We know where Emma works. We know her schedule. Pay or consequences. Below the text was a photo. Emma, walking out of Lincoln Elementary. Taken that afternoon, the message was clear. We're watching. He'd started gambling 2 years ago as a way to cope with stress. Just small bets. March Madness. A little action on Sunday football. It felt harmless, fun. Then he won $3,200 on a basketball game. Felt like a genius, invincible. So he bet more, and won again. $5,000. That's when the hook set. Because gambling addiction isn't about the money. It's about the feeling. The rush. The belief that you've figured out a system. That you're smarter than everyone else. That this time will be different. He'd lost $8,000 the next week. Then $15,000 the week after that, convinced he just needed one more win to get back to even. But there was no getting back to even. There never is. The offshore sites were friendly at first. Easy credit. You're a valued customer. Extensions when he needed them, until he wasn't. Until the friendly emails became cold demands. Until the extensions stopped. 6 months ago, they'd given him an ultimatum, pay $50,000, or they'd contact his wife. That's when he'd forged the refinance documents. Brought Emma to the mortgage company, had her sign a stack of papers. Told her they were getting a better rate. She'd trusted him completely. Signed everything without reading. The $85,000 from the fraudulent refinance had bought him time. Paid down part of the debt, but not enough. Never enough. Because he'd kept betting, kept losing, kept believing the next win would fix everything. Now he owed $340,000 to people who didn't forgive debt. People who knew where his wife worked. People who'd sent him photos of her classroom with the caption, "Nice school." Would be a shame if something happened there. He wasn't a monster. He was a drowning man grabbing at anything to keep his head above water. Even if it meant pulling Emma under with him. He looked at his phone again. Composed a text to Emma. "Did your mom say yes? I need to know. It's urgent." Hit send. Then he opened the betting app and placed another $500 on a game he was absolutely sure would win. Because maybe this time would be different. The next evening, Patricia Reynolds sat in my living room reviewing her notes. Patricia had been my friend since college. Spent 30 years as a family law attorney before retiring at 56. She was sharp, fierce, and she didn't suffer fools. We sat together, me, Emma, Patricia, and went through everything. When we finished, Patricia set down her notepad and looked at Emma directly. "You need to do 4 things. Fast, starting tomorrow. Tell me." Patricia counted on her fingers. 1. Open a new bank account at a completely different bank. Your name only tomorrow morning. Transfer your next paycheck there immediately. Don't tell Brandon, okay. 2. File police reports for identity theft. All 4 credit cards Brandon opened in your name. You didn't authorize them. You didn't benefit from them. You're not responsible for them. Get that on official record. Bring Bob's report as evidence. What if the police don't believe me? They will. This is textbook identity theft. Plus, I'll give you a letter on my old firm's letterhead that usually speeds things up. But Emmy, once you file those reports, there's no going back. Brandon will be investigated for fraud. He could face criminal charges. Emma's jaw tightened. He should face charges. He committed crimes. Good. 3. File for legal separation of property. I've already drafted the paperwork. It costs $350 to file with Cook County Court. Once filed, any new debts Brandon incurs are his alone. It also establishes a legal timeline showing you discovered the fraud and took immediate action. That protects you if this goes to divorce court. When will Brandon find out? The court will notify him within 5 business days of filing. So you have less than a week before he knows what you've done. Which brings me to 4. What's 4? Document everything. Every conversation with Brandon about money from now on, you record. Illinois is a one-party consent state. You can record conversations you're part of without telling the other person. If he threatens you, manipulates you, or admits to the gambling on tape, you want that evidence. For the divorce attorney you're probably going to need. Emma looked at me. Mom, I'm scared, I know. But Emma, Being scared and being safe are two different things. Right now, you need to choose safety. Over the next 4 days, Emma executed the plan with a precision that made me proud. Day 1, new bank account opened at Chase. Different bank, different branch, paperwork in her name only. Day 2, police reports filed for identity theft at Oak Park Police Department. 4 separate reports, one for each fraudulent credit card. Bob's documentation attached. Officer Santos took her statement, looked at the evidence, and said, "Ma'am, this is clear-cut fraud. We'll be contacting your husband for questioning." Day 3, legal. Separation of property filed with Cook County Court. $350 filing fee. Patricia walked Emma through every page. Judge Davis reviewed and granted the preliminary order within 24 hours. Day 4, Emma bought a small voice recorder, tested it, put it in her purse, ready. Brandon still had no idea. He was too busy betting on baseball games and dodging collection calls to notice that his wife was systematically dismantling his access to her life. On day 5, the court notification would arrive at their house, and that's when everything would explode. "Mom," Emma said on day 4, sitting at my kitchen table with a folder full of legal documents, "I'm terrified of what happens when he finds out. I know. What if he gets violent? What if he won't? Men like Brandon are bullies with money, not fists. But Emma, you're not going to confront him alone. When the time comes, you'll do it here. At my house, with Patricia and me. We'll do this safely. Together." When the notification hits Friday, that gives us 3 days to prepare. We're going to role-play the confrontation. Script your responses. Make sure you stay calm and in control. And we're going to make absolutely sure that when Brandon walks out of here, he knows he's lost. Emma took a shaky breath. "Can I really do this?" I reached across the table, took her hand. "You already are doing this. You opened the account, filed the reports, protected yourself legally. You did all of that in 4 days. That's not weakness, honey. That's strength." She looked down at the documents in front of her. Her new bank statement, the police reports, the legal separation filing, the recorder in her purse. Then she looked up at me with something new in her eyes. Not fear. Not anger. Determination. "Okay," she said quietly. "Let's finish this." The second week passed faster than the first. Emma continued to come to my house, but she was no longer a frightened student. She was a determined investigator. She was learning the language of numbers, the difference between an asset and a liability, and the importance of knowing what you own and what owns you. She opened her own secret bank account, started tracking her personal spending, and most importantly, she stopped asking "what should I do?" and started asking "how can I do this?" On Friday morning, exactly 2 weeks after Emma's phone call, Bob Chen called me. "Linda, the report is ready. 43 pages, and it's worse than I thought." My stomach clenched. "Meet me at the office now." When Bob arrived, he didn't just look tired, he looked disgusted. He placed a thick, bound file on the oak table. "Brandon isn't an unlucky investor, Linda. He's a gambling addict, and a pathological liar." Bob's report was a forensic masterpiece. It detailed 2 years of online sports betting on offshore sites, starting with small amounts and escalating to tens of thousands of dollars. Brandon's total debt, spread across 4 different sites, was $340,000. The $78,000 from Emma's savings, it was lost in 3 months, trying to cover previous losses, Bob explained, pointing to the transactions. The investments in Apex Digital and Summit Capital were just shell names for transfers to cryptocurrency accounts he used to fund the bets, and the $85,000 he asked for. He tried to refinance your house 6 months ago. Tried to pull out $85,000 in equity. He used that money to pay off a portion of the debt, but lost it all again within a week. The betting sites are threatening to come after him now. The $85,000 request was a desperate last-ditch effort, promising Emma it was to recover what they lost. I closed my eyes. The coldness of the betrayal was a physical shock. "Bob, the house." Emma told me they bought the house together 5 years ago. But I bought it in 2019, before the wedding, and kept it in my name. How did he refinance? Bob smiled, a sad smile. That's the only good news. The house was never in Brandon's name. It's in yours, Linda. You bought it in April 2019 and put it into an asset protection trust, with Emma as the sole beneficiary. Brandon signed a symbolic lease agreement, thinking it was the mortgage. He didn't refinance anything. He forged Emma's signature on an $85,000 personal loan application, using the house as collateral, but the bank refused. He only managed to get a $15,000 personal loan, which he lost in 2 days. I took a deep breath. John, my late husband. He had taught me to protect what was ours. I had bought the house for Emma, but kept it out of the reach of any future son-in-law. Stealth wealth wasn't just about not looking rich. It was about protection. What else? 4 credit cards opened in Emma's name. $12,000 in debt. He used her name for everything. And the icing on the cake. He's being investigated for embezzling client funds at work. He used the money to cover the bets. He's about to be fired and prosecuted. Bob's report was the naked truth. It wasn't just about money. It was about the systematic destruction of Emma's life by a man she loved and trusted. The final confrontation. I didn't show the report to Emma immediately. I had her sit at the kitchen table, the same table where she had learned about assets and liabilities. Emma, I said, my voice firm, I have the truth. But you have to promise me you'll listen to everything, and that you'll stay strong. She nodded, her eyes wide. I handed her the 43-page report. She read, and read, and read. At first, there was denial. No, Mom, it can't be. He wouldn't do that. Then came the anger. A cold, silent rage I had never seen in her. She didn't scream. She just squeezed the report so hard her knuckles turned white. He told me it was an investment. He made me feel guilty for not trusting him. He made me think I was the idiot who didn't understand finance. He used your trust, Emma. That's worse than stealing money. What do I do now? You have 2 options. You can confront him without proof, and he will lie, manipulate, and convince you that you're wrong. Or you can use what you've learned. You can use the golden rule of wealth multiplication. Knowledge is your greatest asset. We spent the night planning. I called Bob, who put us in touch with a divorce lawyer specializing in marital fraud cases. Illinois is a one-party consent state. The lawyer explained. You can record the conversation, as long as you are present. If he admits to the fraud, we'll have the proof we need for a quick divorce and to protect your assets. On Saturday morning, Emma drove home. She installed a voice recorder on her phone and put it in her pocket. She was calm, cold, and determined. She was no longer the girl who called me crying. She was Linda Morrison's daughter. I waited for her in my car, parked 2 blocks away. Brandon was in the living room, watching a football game. He smiled when he saw her. Hey, honey, did your mom get the money? Emma sat down on the sofa, facing him. No, Brandon. She didn't. She said she needed more time to liquidate investments. His smile faltered. More time. But we need it by Monday. Doesn't she understand the urgency? I understand the urgency, Brandon. What I don't understand is this. Emma threw Bob Chen's report onto the coffee table. 43 pages of betrayal. Brandon picked up the report. His eyes scanned the pages. The name Bob Chen. The betting details. The $340,000 debt. The embezzlement from work. He paled. Panic washed over his face. Where did you get this? You investigated me. Your own wife. I didn't. My mother did. I just read the truth. He tried manipulation. Linda, of course, she never liked me. She's trying to break us up. Emma, this is all lies. I can explain. The money went into an investment. Yes, but it was I just wanted us to have a better life. Don't lie to me anymore, Brandon. I know about the bets. I know about the $340,000. I know about the credit cards in my name. And I know you tried to refinance the house. But you couldn't because it was never in your name. That last sentence hit him like a punch. He looked at her, the mask dropping. What? What do you mean never in your name? The house belongs to my mother, Brandon. She bought it before we got married and put it in a trust. You signed a lease agreement. You are entitled to nothing. That was the end. His anger exploded. He stood up, screaming, "You ungrateful bitch. I gave you everything. I gave you a life. And you investigate me. You're nothing without me. You're a second-grade teacher making $54,000 a year. You're going to lose everything. I'll leave you on the street." Emma, sitting calmly, simply said, "You already left me on the street, Brandon. You stole my savings. You betrayed me. And you just admitted all of it. The conversation is recorded. My lawyer will be in touch on Monday." He tried to approach her, but she stood up and backed away. "Don't touch me." He collapsed onto the sofa, his head in his hands. The monster had been defeated. The divorce was quick and clean. With the recording and Bob's report, Brandon had no choice but to accept the terms. He lost his job, faced prosecution for embezzlement, and had to file for bankruptcy to deal with the gambling debt. Emma didn't have to pay a cent. She kept her dignity, her career, and most importantly, her freedom. Time passed. 6 months later, Emma was unrecognizable. She had moved into a small apartment in Oak Park, close to my house. She was focused on her career and her new asset, knowledge. "Mom, what do I do about the $78,000 we lost?" She asked me one day. "You didn't lose it, Emma. You invested it in your education. And now, you're going to apply what you learned." I helped her find her first rental property. A small duplex in Berwyn, near a train station. She used the money I gave her, the $85,000 she had asked for, but now as a low-interest loan, so she had the responsibility to pay it back as a down payment. She didn't buy the property. She earned it. She did the due diligence, negotiated the price, found a reliable tenant, and learned to manage the property. A year later, she bought her second property. 2 years later, her third. Today, 3 years after the midnight phone call, Emma is a 36-year-old, divorced, second-grade teacher, and owner of 3 rental properties. She generates $3,500 per month in passive income after all expenses. That's almost double what she earns teaching. She still teaches, but now she teaches because she wants to, not because she needs to. She uses her free time to write a blog about financial education for women, sharing the golden rule of wealth multiplication that her father and I taught her. Wealth is not measured by how much you earn, but by how much you keep, and how hard your money works for you. The most valuable asset you own is your knowledge. Invest in it, and it will multiply forever. She calls me every week, not to ask for money, but to discuss investment strategies, retirement plans, and the next property. Recently, she introduced me to Marcus. He's a high school math teacher, divorced, with 2 children. He's not rich, but he's financially responsible, and most importantly, he's transparent. They sit at his kitchen table every Sunday morning, with coffee and spreadsheets, reviewing their finances. I smiled when she told me. It was John's ritual. I still drive my 2015 Toyota Camry. I still buy my clothes at Target. I still work part-time as a bookkeeper. I am still the modest widow living in the suburbs. But now, when I look at Emma, I see the true multiplication of wealth, not in dollars, but in freedom. I didn't rescue her. I taught her to rescue herself. And that was the best investment I ever made.